And then how the veterans would be picked. What we did in New Mexico was we went to the various veterans agencies and things, and with a clipboard talked to them about it, and they actually signed up. We had certain inclusion criteria. What we wanted to do, like as Dr. Lechner said, is to identify a high-risk group that we're going to screen. You don't want to screen just the general population. You want to identify a risk profile group at the front end. So veterans off the bat have a higher incidence, and we chose veterans that were 20-pack-year smokers, that they had smoked the equivalent of a pack a day for 20 years. So that was a relatively high-risk group. Those are the ones that we identified and that we screened in New Mexico. And they signed up. It was a volunteer thing. And the other part was that they had to know who their primary care physician was in the VA system or otherwise, and also have their insurance or medical benefits so that they, if we found an issue, that they would have the wherewithal to get treated. So a lot of the front end of the study, too, was as we talked to a number of veterans, they really didn't know who their primary care physician was and things. So we also liaisoned with the VA and things to identify their insurance benefits and who their primary care physicians were, and then give them traction into the system. So it was very beneficial on the front end that way as well.
So you have gone through a lot of testing with your technology, so you know how much efficacy it has in actual detection of cancer, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have. We're completing our phase 2 clinical trial. There's 3 phases to clinical trials. We're completing our phase 2 trial right now. We've been doing that in New Mexico and then also in Delaware with our principal investigator there at the teaching hospital, Christiana at the University of Delaware. We've done a lot. We have, indicates that it has very good accuracy. In our study, we also, every participant got a CT scan that was read by a radiologist under the LCAP, the Early Lung Cancer Action Program protocol, looking for lung nodules and identifying those, and then identifying for the longitudinal segment who should be followed based on if they had lung nodules. We also, there was a sputum collection that each participant gave. It was a triple pooled one where they would collect sputum 3 days in a row, bring it back to it would be sent back to our laboratory, and we would prepare slides. One microscope slide would go up to the VA Medical Center in Denver, where they would do a Pap staining, which is the same type of staining that they use for the cervical test. And they do that staining and review, a cytopathologist would review those slides at the university, at the VA Medical Center in Denver, and then report the results. So we had the radiology standard of care in place with this study, and then we had the cytology standard of care, which is the Pap review. And then we had our test, which is for investigational use, and we'd compare those 3 results and basically use the 2 standards to make diagnosis to report to the primary care physician and the person.
Okay, let me see if I understand this right. You already have gone through at least one phase of testing, so you have some idea of how good your product is. Will you be, in this current study proposed here, would you be involved in comparing your testing technology against others to see which ones are more efficacious?
Yes, that's
the plan of the study.
Right, so that we could, in essence, triangulate a diagnosis off of these 3 different diagnostic modalities, the Pap staining, the CyPath test is our test, and the CT scan read under the LCAP protocol, along with a risk profile of the patient, participant. In this case, it was veterans who were 20-pack-year smokers. So there's that high risk profile, and then the diagnosis, the 3 diagnostic tests done together, and that would be brought together to screen these patients.
Is your company being asked to contribute to this study in any way other than to participate? Are you being asked to help pay for the study?
Well, we're paying for it in kind by providing the study protocol and things that we've already done, and the ability to manage and run that test and this kind of study and our experience, and then also to perform our test on all the patients. So we're contributing funds in that. It's probably about a 1-to-1 type of funding in-kind type of contribution we'd be giving.
And will the results of this study be part of your phase 2 testing?
It would actually be part of our phase 3. We're essentially done with our phase 2 testing, and we would like these results. That's what we would provide, and what we would like in return is to have the data as part of one of the sites for our multi-site pivotal trial, our phase 3 clinical trial. The end point of that would be submittal to the FDA for regulatory approval, and then to make this a widely available test throughout the United States that wouldn't even require other modalities, and then it could move into an inexpensive diagnostic screening tool for the general high-risk population.
Well, is it a fair conclusion that the data gathered in this study would be of significant value to your company in establishing or getting approval from the FDA, I think it is, you said?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We'll be gathering data similar to this in approximately 6 to 8 sites around the country.
Senator Price has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, thank you for coming out. I know it's hard to leave New Mexico. My question to you is kind of a piggyback on what I asked before, and that is, how many veterans have been screened in New Mexico?
In New Mexico, we screened 135 veterans.
135.
And we've been following a subset of those on a longitudinal basis, bringing them back in every 3 months for follow-on.
For how long?
We're into our second longitudinal follow-on of those.
So, I mean, how long have you been doing it? For the 2 year?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's been for approximately a year and a half. It took us about almost a year to do, about 9 months to do the protocol, get it through the FDA, get their feedback, design the study, get what's called an IRB approval, safety approval to do the study. We started receiving and recruiting and receiving our first samples and doing patients in April. So we've been doing it since April of 2009.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Cousins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Appreciate it.
More proponent testimony? See none, I will now call for opponent testimony. No opponent testimony. Anybody wish to testify in a neutral position? Seeing none,